Happy Friday, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing an interesting video. We know what's happened and we've been covering it on this channel today with FTX. And of course, there was a recent hearing in regards to FTX in the United States. There were some really interesting things that came out of this. Some things that I found comical were that they use QuickBooks for their accounting, FTX. There was a lot of I think negative slant put on the cryptocurrency industry as a whole as a result of this. This has really been a lose-lose situation for everybody involved, the people that were partaking in FTX and really the industry as a whole. And even Sam Bankman-Fried, although he deserves to lose as a result of his actions. But Kevin O'Leary has essentially came out and is throwing massive allegations at CZ and Binance in regards to them being the very reason that FTX went bust and subsequently all these people have lost their money. Now, I think the problem was with FTX and not Binance. I followed the thing very closely. We lived through it. We saw CZ's original tweet talking about the fact that he was going to start to sell off his FTT shares, and then shortly after FTX collapsed. But I think the reasons for FTX collapsing were internal. They weren't because CZ was essentially going to dump all these shares. There was issues there that would have been there with or without this. But was CZ's actions partly to blame for the collapse, or the collapse when it happened with FTX? And we're going to let you guys make your own mind up. I have my own opinion on this. I happen to not think that CZ... I like CZ. And I also like Binance. I think it's a trustworthy exchange. I think they've been very transparent recently with their proof of reserves. You can go and find all their, or I think it was $45 billion worth of their reserves on EtherScan and BUSD scan or BnB scan and a number of other things. But we're going to play the allegations made by, we're going to play a clip highlighting the allegations made by Kevin O'Leary, because there's some big ones, and we'll let you guys make your own mind up, and then we'll look at the retaliation or a few words from CZ in regards to this.
Why do you believe FTX failed?
I have an opinion. I don't have the records. Here it is. After my accounts were stripped of all of their assets and all of the accounting and trade information, I couldn't get answers from any of the executives in the firm, so I simply called Sam Bankman-Fried and said, "Where is the money, Sam?" He said he had been refused access to the servers. He no longer knew. I said, "Okay, let's step back. This is a simple case in my mind of where did the money go?" And I said, "Sam, walk me back 24 months. Tell me the use of proceeds of the assets of your company. Where did you spend it?" And then he told me about a transaction that occurred over the last 24 months, the repurchase of his shares from Binance, his competitor. I didn't know this at the time, but at some point, CZ or Binance, who runs Binance, purchased 20% ownership in Sam Bankman-Fried's firm for seed stock. And then, over time, and I asked him, what would compel you to spend $2 billion was the number he was giving me at that time. Later, in a subsequent conversation, about 24 hours later, he told me it could have been as much as $3 billion to buy back the shares from CZ. I asked him, what would compel you to do that? Why wouldn't you keep your assets on your balance sheet? And why would you offer this to just one shareholder? He said, because every time we went to get licensed in different jurisdictions, because you must understand the prize of crypto is to get regulated. For all the talk we say about Bitcoin and everything else, no institutions own this. I work for the sovereign wealth and pension plans. They don't touch this stuff because it's unregulated. Between these two, let's call them frenemies, because they obviously were the two, potentially the two largest shareholders in the firm, they had a disagreement. They had a falling apart. Apparently, according to Sam Bankman-Fried, CZ would not comply with the regulators' request in these different geographies, these different jurisdictions, to provide the data that would clear them for a license. He withheld it, according to Sam Bankman-Fried. The only option the management and Sam Bankman-Fried had was to buy him out at an extraordinary valuation of close to $32 billion, less apparently a 15% discount. That stripped the balance sheet of assets. You asked.
Just want to quickly interject there. He's talking about 32 million or billion in terms of a ransom that he's suggesting CZ was holding over FTX and the company. I can't help but feel like Sam and Kevin O'Leary, a huge backer, public backer, he's a kind of celebrity investor, if you will, celebrity businessman, are looking for an scapegoat in the form of CZ, where the problems were clearly there. I mean, just looking at the accounting and the kind of lack of records that have now been provided to kind of give clarity. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried's interviews have just been, you know, you're almost more confused after watching them than you were going into them. I think they're kind of looking for a scapegoat here, but we'll continue and then we'll play CZ's response.
Ask me why it went bankrupt. Go to the last week. All of a sudden, in social media, CZ is asking for another $500 million. He wants to do a block trade of FTT, or the proprietary token of FTX. Wants it converted back to fiat. Why would you put that out there? You know it's going to push down the pressure. It's going to push down the value of that coin dramatically, and that's exactly what happened. Every trader knows that if you have a large block trade, you go negotiate a clearing price with other buyers and you do the transaction. In my view, my personal opinion, these two behemoths that own the unregulated market together and grew these incredible businesses in terms of growth were at war with each other. And one put the other out of business intentionally. Now, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe there's nothing wrong with love and war. But Binance is a massive, unregulated, global monopoly now. They put FTX out of business. Now, lots of other reasons, I'm sure, but that's my personal opinion. That is what Sam Bankman-Fried told me in terms of where the assets went. Why should we care? Single reason. I'm a shareholder. You tell me the two largest shareholders do a transaction together, that's a related party transaction. I'm not sure that's okay. Maybe I want a Madoff clawback on those proceeds.
We'll leave it there. He's throwing some really big allegations against CZ and Binance, ultimately. I can't help but feel like there's going to be a lot of heat coming off of this for Binance. You know, Binance have had record withdrawals already, but I feel like it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds. And I've always said that I feel like FTX is a Trojan horse. I don't think that, you know, somebody has got to that sort of valuation without being facilitated, but for what reason? Maybe he is that stupid and has managed to probably take one of the biggest losses of all time. But I can't help but feel like it's a Trojan horse, and a Trojan horse for the sort of financial titans to or to actually now gain a monopoly over the crypto space, having taken out the competition. This is typically how business is done, certainly when you're dealing with entities within the United States. So let's play CZ's response, and then I'm going to love and leave you to your Fridays, guys.
He says he didn't know that Binance was a shareholder of FTX. So he invested in FTX without looking at the cap table. But he was very specific in the way he counts for a transaction 2 years ago. So that's kind of contradictory. So I think Calvin's a liar. So I think he's lying about a bunch of stuff. So that's his problem. To us, we want to be transparent. We want to set the golden standard for reliability, solidness in this space.
So do it.
And we're
Was the big fan of the person interviewing him, certainly when she says, so do it, like it's, you know. Anyway, you can find both of these full interviews, but this is certainly interesting stuff, and this is, in my opinion, definitely going to have negative repercussions on the cryptocurrency market as a whole. Certainly Binance, which is now the largest exchange. If there's problems with Binance, that's ultimately going to have repercussions on the individual cryptos that are listed on there, as people may have to sell them or something along those lines. I still hold money on Binance. I have never really had a problem with Binance, but we'll see what unfolds. For now, I'm still happy to leave my funds on Binance, just to be totally transparent. But I can't help but feel like certainly this guy, by the way, this guy was given 15 million by FTX to promote it. and he's now crying about it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, how many people did Kevin O'Leary get into Binance and FTX, and did they subsequently lose money as a result of him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Who do you think is telling the truth here? I'm on the side of CZ. I think, yes, the dumping of the FTT token would have spurred on the collapse, but it would have been a collapse that I think would have eventually came either way. And Kevin O'Leary is really just looking for somebody to blame for his and Sam Bankman-Fried's mistakes. All I've got for you in this one, guys. Have a fantastic Friday. See you in the next one.